following is a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Generations Chiropractic, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands. Welcome in, everybody, to Taking Care of Business, today featuring Generations Chiropractic, and we have Dr. Ellie here with us today. Dr. Ellie, we talked a little bit before the show started. Little recovering. You've been traveling a little bit recently.
I just got back on Sunday from being over in Poland for about 10 days. So I did not want to leave, but I was super glad when I got back into the clinic yesterday. I'm able to take care of my people. I'm able to serve my clinic, and it just makes me happy. And everyone can actually see how happy it makes me taking care of people, which is really what I love doing.
So whenever we talk, I can always tell you have a real passion for the work that you do. But I have to imagine it was nice to get a little bit of time to decompress and get away.
Yeah, this is the first time I took a vacation since I started the clinic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was a big deal for me. I am shutting down the clinic for a week. I'm going and visiting my boyfriend's family over there, and it was nice to get away and get a little break. And then it also was hard because he and his family are still over there in Poland for another couple of weeks. So I'm like, okay, I'm coming back to the clinic doggo, Miss Gremlin. Everyone keeps calling her a gremlin of Mini Pearl. And literally when I was at the airport, my boyfriend was like, you get to go home, you get to see Mini Pearl, you get to go back to your clinic, you get to take care of the people you love. And I'm like, but I don't want to go.
The joy of vacation. You never want to come home. And of course, they'll be home soon.
Yeah.
So you get to get back to doing what you love here, which is very important work.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, recently we celebrated a pretty big holiday for some of the people that you help take care of, which is those mamas out there.
Yeah, so I love taking care of serving my pregnant mamas, families, that kind of thing. So yeah, Mother's Day is something that is really important to me and to celebrate. And also I'm like, okay, I literally flew back here on Mother's Day, got back in at 9 p.m. and I'm like, oh my goodness, I totally missed celebrating it for my clinic because I normally like to do a big lead up and, just acknowledgement because moms deserve more than just one day for everything that they give in their life. And I'm like, okay, plus that I learned when I was over in Poland. In Poland, they celebrate Mother's Day on May 26th, and it's a set day on the calendar. So I'm like, that hasn't come up yet, so I might do a little bit more of a celebration for the mothers in my clinic later in this month.
There you go. Still falls in the same month, and moms will love it no matter what.
Well, and again, it'll be a little bit more potentially unexpected versus, hey, okay, this is Mother's Day. What do we have on the docket versus, oh, this is another just token of appreciation, because we don't always give those tokens of appreciation to everyone.
That is very true. And, I would say that if you're looking for a way to spoil mom throughout the year, chiropractic care is probably not a bad way to do it.
And it's not just for mom, too. Being able to get the whole family under care helps relieve mom's stress, too. Chiropractic care is so much more, and I'll always continue to say this, so much more than just popping backs, cracking spines. It's how can we allow you to adapt to the stresses of life? And there's a lot of those going on with mom and family as a whole. Yeah,
well, and we know mom has to deal with a lot of stresses all the time. I hear it from my wife constantly, and so I fully understand how that goes. What I really love about what you do with moms, though, is when I think about the relationship with, becoming a mom, being pregnant, growing a little person inside of them, that definitely takes a toll on the body. It's something that, I'll never have to worry about experiencing, be the plus side or the negative side to it, but it does take a toll on the body. And you're there to kind of help them through that process in the sense of keeping things aligned, keeping things developing right, keeping blood flow going, keeping those nerves firing where they're supposed to be, keeping all that in line. But then they can also come to you during their postpartum time frame and continue to see you.
And sometimes that's what people forget about even more is, okay, I'm in this prenatal time frame. I'm growing this human inside of me. I want to make sure, I've heard that chiropractic can do great things to help with shortening labor time and easing of delivery and some of those things. Or, okay, my sciatic has just started shooting up so much during pregnancy. But then often postpartum times, people are like, okay, let's focus on baby. What is going on with baby? And we forget the mom piece. So I love the moms that are like, no, postpartum care is just as important, and I value that probably even more for the moms in the clinic and the community, because also, as a whole, that's an area where we can always keep improving in women's health. And who is taking care of mom postpartum? Who is making sure that her emotions are in check?
Right.
Because sometimes there can be big things of, okay, anxiety, postpartum depression, all those things that are happening of, literally your body is made to create this human being and birth this human being, but you're stepping into a new version of yourself. And chiropractic allows us to better help that transition and someone along the journey as you're stepping into a new version of who you are.
And I know we've talked in the past about how there is kind of a relationship between if you are feeling good, you're feeling, physically, you're feeling like you're in line, everything else, that can affect your mood in a positive way. And if you're feeling negative mood-wise, you might be slouching more, you might not be sitting upright, and that can definitely have a negative effect on your body. So it's nice to get those things in parity.
Absolutely. And then you can't even deny the fact that, okay, you have mom and baby. This is a dyad of the two that are constantly working together. Whether, again, normally when we think postpartum, people are like, okay, only immediately postpartum, you have a new infant. Well, children still pick up on what the parent is presenting and what's going on with that. Whether you talk about financial stresses, work stresses, any of those home stresses, you don't have to verbalize that. If you're in the same household, the young ones are going to pick up on that.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do love the fact that, in your case, generations chiropractic, generations, you're really talking about that family dynamic. So mom comes in when she's pregnant, let's say, and she's getting care prenatal, and then postnatal care, it's her and little one. Maybe at that point they had another little one at home that starts coming in. Maybe dad starts coming in, and you could see multi-generations in one day.
Yeah, it makes it really fun. Like, those are some of the things that absolutely light me up. Like, I have know at least for sure one family on the docket for this afternoon. 3 generations coming in, and they all come in at the same time, and it makes it so fun for me that it's like, okay, even grandma will sometimes help pick them up from school, and then they literally meet the parents at the chiropractor, and that's where they do all the switch off and the transitions. And when I'd first started, I remember, I didn't even make the family connections because, when people change their names once they get married and that kind of thing. And I'm like, wait, that's your son, or like that's your daughter, and so you guys are all cousins there. It makes me really excited to find families and serve families that value health in a different way.
And that's really important. I want to touch on some of the things that we have here that we wanted to talk about. And there's one I wanted to jump on right away because we were talking about moms right after giving birth. But when it comes to the physical changes that are going on, mom and baby are both going through a lot of changes within, the first 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Baby especially going through a lot of changes. There's a lot happening there. And sometimes it's easy for us to be like, oh, well, it's normal. Babies go through changes. Mom's going to go through changes. And we don't think about ways that we can help ease that process. Mm-hmm. And that's part of what you do as well.
A big thing for me is also I get to be that listening ear for moms who are asking questions and curious. And it's great that we have so many different support groups on Facebook and different moms groups. And, it's like, hey, you can start to get some resources there. But also, like, you can talk to someone who's trained and has studied care for moms and postpartum, and how can we look at it differently through the nervous system, through the lens of how the brain is communicating to the body, through the lens of what makes us feel safe in life. Right. And the biggest thing is a new little human is so tiny and so vulnerable. And so we just got to keep them safe and protect them. Not that, oh my goodness, we got to put this baby in bubble wrap. That's not it either. But how can we just allow their entire environment around them to be safe? And they pick up on signs of lack of safety when it comes to anxiousness, unsureness. Like, yeah, we know new parents are always going to be tired and exhausted. That's a part of having a newborn. But it's not it's a common thing to have, babies who are like, okay, we're constantly going through this colic and this really bad witching hour. That's common, but that's not normal development for a child. That's a lot of additional stress that the baby is trying to express of, I don't know how to be handling and adapting to the surrounding environment.
Right. And colic is a great example because I know there's a lot of little things that new parents might freak out about, be it that the baby's colicky, maybe the baby's not, going to the bathroom as often as they think it should or that they expect it to. Maybe they're having trouble with getting it to eat on one side or the other. I actually had a really good friend, their baby couldn't refuse to eat if they were on their right side as opposed to their left side. And it was something where, trip into the pediatric doctor and it turns out there was like an adjustment thing that had to be made, which didn't even occur to me as a thing.
Well, and there are plenty of times that I'll even ask moms, like, okay, is the baby feeding fine? If you're breastfeeding, is it feeding on both sides and everything? And the response is, oh yeah, it's fine. Everything seems to be going fine. And then dive further into the question of, well, can you do the same type of holds on both sides? Or it's like, oh no, I can do this on this side, but I have to do this on this side. And I'm like, oh, okay. So when we dive a little bit deeper into it, it's because baby can't fully rotate its head to both directions. So you as a mom are so intuitive and strong and know what the baby needs that you're still able to adapt the surroundings and the environment to allow baby to get the nutrition it needs. Well, it could be so much easier for both you and baby to have more variety in your lives.
Right. And when it comes to babies' development, I mean, we think about over the first couple of years, first year especially, when they're starting to move, roll around, crawl. We always hear, usually it's the older generation who are, oh, they're not walking yet, that's fine. You were slow to walk too, or oh, they're crawling, but they're always scooting their head across the floor. Oh, you did that too, or whatever. They only scoot on their butt, and those are also not standard normal developmental things.
And we've been seeing a lot more of those patterns, unfortunately. And then, you appreciate if you have grandparents or other relatives or whatever, but often it's different daycare situations. And it's just the nature of, hey, by the time the baby's even in a car seats are meant for safety. And I'm not dissing on car seats because they serve a purpose. But to leave a baby in a car seat all day, that's not helping their development
Right.
at all. So it's like that, pro and con of they're meant for safety. And if I have to drive a half an hour because I live a half an hour away and their daycare is that far, like that's a lot of time for a child in a car seat.
Right. Well, I even think looking back at my oldest, we to get them to fall asleep, they refused to just lay down and fall asleep. But we had one of those like swings that reclined almost all the way back. Put her in that, and she was out with no problem. And we're like, well, why is that? Well, we don't know, but she's sleeping, so just be happy. And oftentimes that's kind of how it is, right? Like, just put them in these apparatuses.
Yeah, and there's even that balance of you hold a baby and it's crying, your instinct is naturally to bounce a little, give it a little wiggle, and like, yeah, that normally helps calm a baby down quite a bit. So then we've taken it to some of the next levels of, again, let's create some of these contraptions that, okay, I can put the baby in here and it's going to have that little bounce, it's going to have that swing. And yes, that's obviously helpful if it gets baby to sleep, but that's also changing the brain development of how the little baby will continue to develop for the rest of its life. Like, there's definitely times where I'm not going to say that there's no way I'm going to put one of my children in one of those at some point. Like,
Right.
I need to go take a shower. Like,
Right.
moms and dads, they have daily tasks they have to do too.
Very true.
It's like, babies are beautiful and you can't hold them 24/7 either.
Yeah, and as much as we would love to sometimes, and that's another thing I think about. Like my wife for the first like 6 months, sometimes putting the baby down was just, I don't want to, I want to hold her, and that's now you're going from carrying a weight around here to carrying a weight around here. It's tough on the arms, tough on the shoulders, and that's why that continued family care is so important.
And one of the biggest things I always want to reiterate is I don't care what choices you make for you and your family. I just want you to know that there's options, and I'm going to accept you on your journey wherever you're at. If you want to approach some of these things from this manner, cool. If you're like, well, now you've informed me about this, but I'm still going to make these decisions. Like, that's where I come from, a place of service and love, that I will support you the best I can in your journey. And no matter what, I know a well-regulated nervous system will help you in whatever journey you decide to make for you and your family.
There you go. And it is that well-regulated nervous system that ties into it all, because it's not just, as we've said, the popping and cracking of bones. That's the common perception of it, but it definitely goes beyond that. I see you have a note on here, and I'd love to talk about some of these things because it's stuff that I didn't really think about. Talking about some clinic examples of cases you've seen in doing the chiropractic care that you do. Oftentimes when I think of, ailments, physical, issues, it's something where it's like, oh, well, that's you go see your general practitioner, you go see a doctor for that. chiropractics for when, you feel like your shoulder's a lot out of alignment or your back's a little stiff or your neck doesn't move like it's supposed to. But those can be indicative of larger issues.
And it all depends on what someone's level and education about chiropractic is, depending on when they come in for care of, okay, I can tell that this is locked up and I need chiropractic care. And other people are like, wait, I've heard that it is more of an alternative opportunity or a complementary alternative to, regular medicine. So like, okay, you'll get different presentations and different levels of varying people coming into the clinic of, okay, I've heard everything. I've read all the beautiful holistic research, holistic information. I want to choose this for someone who is going to be, staying ahead of things and so preventative. And then there are plenty of other people who come in with that sciatic, that shooting pain down their leg or that shooting pain down their arm. And it's hard for me to pick up a pen or I can't even write because my hand goes numb or that, some of those carpal tunnel type things. So you can get people coming in with a variety of complaints.
Radiculopathy?
That's
a big word.
I put the technical term on there, sorry. Radiculopathy.
Okay.
So radiculopathy is, you've probably heard it before without even realizing it. It's that shooting pain down either your arm or down your leg. So sciatica is a form of radiculopathy when you get that either numbness, tingling, sharp, shooting pain all the way from your hips all the way down to your toes. That's just showing up in your leg as sciatica. Or plenty of times it also shows up in the neck and into the arm. So it's actually coming from impingements of stuff in the neck, resulting in, discomfort all the way down the arm too.
And that's, because when I think of shooting pain down the arm, the first thing I think of was like hitting your funny bone. But that's not the same thing we're talking about.
No. Like it literally, sometimes people literally feel the pain going all the way down their arm. And not a fun situation. And then it becomes difficult of, okay, how am I going to hold and grasp things? Like my elbow doesn't even feel like it's working. And like even then so much pain raising your arm above shoulder height.
Right.
Yeah, like it can impact a lot of things. And when you talk about people with sciatica, because sometimes I feel like that's just a better example of, you hear a lot more about lower back and sciatic type stuff of, okay, it's so painful to walk and like I'm feeling it in my foot and my knee is so achy and my hips are, And same thing can happen in the arms coming from more of the neck. And often sciatica is actually coming from the lower back and the pelvis. So just different regions of the body.
Let's talk about the neck a little bit because that's one of those areas where, like, I always freak out when I see people, like, pop their own neck or crack it. And I'm always like...
Don't worry, I do too.
and I always feel like something bad's going to happen. And I'm fairly confident it's not going to be like they pop their neck and it's, like, secretly Steven Seagal ghostly behind them was like, and they fall down. But I was like, yo, could you, like, I feel like you could really do some damage. And so, like... It freaks me out.
Yes.
Obviously, you have, but with as delicate as that is, there are things that you can do that that help all that.
There are so many ways to fine tune things, and one of the things I specifically love about my style at the clinic is that it's different than a lot of other chiropractors around here. We utilize a lot more of the drop table component, so that means that the table is going up underneath your body, and then gravity is allowing it to fall with a little bit of pressure so that we're able to utilize less force but create just as much or even more of an impact because we can look at things and you can always continue to add more. It's like little bits and you can add more. If you add too much, you can never take that away. So I'm always like, hey, let's be specific. Let's do little bits and let's keep checking it. Oh, yep, it's better. Oh, it could use a little more attention. And you often don't hear that popping, clicking in my clinic.
People
do get spooked by the table. I'll give you that. I had a toddler yesterday, and I looked at the toddler right in the eyes, and I'm like, I'm going to adjust mom now, and this is going to be loud. Do you need to cover your ears? And, looked at me and was like, nope, okay, all good. So the table goes down, immediately starts crying, and I'm like, we're going to do that again. And so she runs off to the other room with dad and covers her ears. I'm like, I know you're smart enough to understand what's going on, and I'm trying to warn you too.
I'm trying to visualize how this table works. So is it just like the head part suddenly drops down? Or the body? Like,
Yeah, I guess I can include pictures for next time that I never even thought to mention stuff. So sometimes you'll hear about tables that start basically almost vertical, and then you go for a ride and go, wee.
Right.
I don't have those because they're even more of a safety hazard for kids. Because if they're unmanned, children can accidentally press the button, and then
and it's a fun ride till it's not.
Yeah, and we've heard too many horror stories in school growing up and stuff that it's like, okay, make sure in chiropractic school you never leave them unmanned. You don't have extra one, and I'm like, understood. But my table is basically a flat table, and then it has a different region for the head area and more the chest area, more lower back, and more pelvis area. And each of those different sections rise a little, and you don't even necessarily notice how much it's rising because it's probably only just a couple of degrees, but it makes it, again, a decent sound when it drops. The beauty of it is when you look at, force equals mass times acceleration, we're able to get more force by utilizing the acceleration of the table because we're having that speed of the table create a lot of that as opposed to, okay, I have to whammo into this.
Right. Well, and I guess that makes sense because, when I think about, chiropractors, you're not all built the same, I sometimes see videos where it's these, big burly guys and they're doing stuff. And then I also see, you're not a very big person, you're pretty petite. Mm-hmm. And so to think that you're able to, work on somebody who's big and burly and pop there and crack and adjust.
There are different styles of chiropractic. There are different techniques. There are even different tables. I even have my tables in the clinic set up at different heights themselves too. So I have my two primary tables I utilize. I have my kiddo table, and I have two other tables. One table is in a sensory room in case we need to either dim the lights or create more of a calming environment. And then I have one other table that I specifically keep at a lower height, especially based on some adjustments I normally have to do on females that I've never seen ever show up in males. But females, whether you've had kids or not, okay, so some of the people I see it showing up the most on are females who have given birth to numerous children, mm-hmm. or more dancers and gymnasts when they were younger.
Okay. Is this something to do with like the hips?
Yeah, so I was going to say there's oftentimes you'll notice even more of a tilt forward of some of the hips. So it creates this really big curve in their lower back. And often in chiropractic, we're adjusting things P to A. So we call that posterior to anterior, meaning people are normally laying face down and like, okay, something is back, you're going to push it forward. Well, sometimes there's a time to do more of an anterior adjustment, so forward to back. And in order to do that, I need to have people laying on their backs, and they're actually bending their hips and knees at 90 degrees, so I have to get above their knees. So if the table is too tall for me, and for me to be, utilizing their knees as a lever, like, I'm not tall enough on that, so even just a little bit of the change in height will help dictate of, oh, no, I will always have you go to this table versus other people. You could get adjusted on any of the tables. And that anterior type adjustment, like when it comes to the pelvis, very few people know about it, learn about it. It's not something that's taught in school. And even when it comes into the neck, when we were kind of talking a lot of that shooting pain down the arm, right. That is normally a huge thing that clears it out when you do an anterior in the neck that most people don't even talk about and that we don't learn in school either.
So is it generally better for adjustments to be kind of a front to back, back to front? Because when I see people popping their neck, it's never front to back. It's always like rotational. And when I think about like doing stuff with your back, they tell you don't over rotate or don't rotate when you're putting force and stress on it. I would think that's the same thing because it's still the spine, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to say that there are three, when we talk about movement, there's normally 3 planes of motion. And the body can move in more than just 3 different directions, 3 different planes. Right. But that's the main way we're going to think about it is more the front to back motion. It can have that rotation component. And then we also have a tipping motion. So rotation is normally the one that when you focus only on rotation, you'll hear the loudest sounds, but it does the least amount of effectiveness long term.
Right.
So, and again, there are some things that it's like, okay, no, it is really rotated for whatever reason. Like, hey, again, everyone has an exception in their body, but that's not the primary issue that's normally going on.
Right.
And then so many things will be slipping, that I'm going to say slipping, that we need the front to back or back to front motion, because also what do we think about when we're sitting here at a desk? Our head going forward, our shoulders rounding forward. Right. That's more, how can we correct some of that healthy curve in our neck, in our lower back, and, get those shoulders to open up. It's not that we're constantly twisting, 90 degrees to our left when we're sitting here in a chair talking.
Right, that makes sense. I know after I've been sitting at the desk working on stuff for a while, it's kind of a sit up and just push
You
everything
even
back and,
extend back and you're like, oh, that feels good to open up that chest and that shoulder area again. You don't even realize that it got so stiff and tight.
That makes a lot of sense. We're about at the middle of the show, so I do want to remind everybody, excuse me, this is a paid program, and the advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Generations Chiropractic, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands. I do want to remind people, if they want to find you, you are located here in Beaver Dam.
I am,
That's where your clinic is. Phone number they can call or text. Text is a great way as well, 920-885-0641.
You got it.
There you go. And you also have a website.
Yes, Generations Chiropractic, WI.
There you go. And people can check out stuff on there as well, book appointments. So definitely worth reaching out and doing so. I want to talk a little bit more about the tools that get used, because now that I've talked about the drop table, I'm interested. And I'm always seeing, because it seems like no matter what, there's more and more stuff being put out there for people to, self-treat, handle problems, be it things that, you stand on and they shake your whole body, to, things that are supposed to provide resistance for your shoulders and your arms, for, readjusting that stuff. I've even seen something that to me kind of looked like a strap you'd use to strap down stuff in a moving van. People are using it on their necks and whatever to pull, and I see all that stuff and it freaks me out a little bit. And I'm assuming that there are actual tools that are helpful that you use that are kind of specific to your trade.
And a lot of those things you mentioned, I am not 100% against them, but I'm always along the lines of, are you getting good nervous system-based chiropractic care before just incorporating them? And are you well trained and versed in knowing how to even self-support you in those tools usages? So like one of the things how you kind of mentioned, like, okay, your body completely shaking you. Like, I've actually looked at getting a vibration plate in the clinic because it's so good for so many things, especially this time of the year when we come about talking about pollens and allergies. Right. It does so much to help with the immune system that one of my previous clinics, we had them, and I'm like, I could see that being a thing that I want to incorporate into the clinic at some point. Right now, the main thing I have at the clinic is the adjustment. The adjustment is the most powerful thing, and I have, again, ways to assist myself in doing that between different pieces of the table, or I have a tool called the activator that can be helpful to do the adjustments in an even lighter version if we needed. Or I have these blocks called SOT blocks that, especially if someone's pelvis is really wonky or something, like, it can be a way of, they just lay on these blocks and it actually helps alignment in when you don't just slide these blocks in any which way, even though it might seem like, oh yeah, okay, she's just throwing these underneath someone's pelvis. Like, no, this is at this angle, this is at this angle based on what's showing up, right. Even though sometimes it can look very willy-nilly per se.
I mean, I am always fascinated by the tools of the trade that people use to make stuff like this happen. And I know you had talked about, like when you're working with the littles, sometimes you have like a race car type thing you use for like a diagnostic tool.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's used on the mamas and the daddies and stuff as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And outside of the chiropractic piece, the one other thing I have in the sauna is to be helping out in the clinic is the infrared sauna. And again, overall, I'm trying to create what are ways that all those other things you had previously mentioned, how can we also create wellness here in the Dodge County area? I am such a huge advocate of we need to regulate that nervous system first, but also this is the community where I live and grow and thrive and plan to raise a family, and how can I make sure that everyone that I interact with and my future family interacts with, how can I create the best environment for them too?
That does make a lot of sense. I want to talk about some of the less common stuff you have listed here, because this is kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about postpartum, and you have a note on here that it says it can take up to 2 years to heal and get your hormones and body fully recovered after the birth of a child, which is crazy because 2 years, that's a long time. It only took you 9 months to make it.
Right, and you don't even think about the piece often of how long it takes to, regulate your body afterwards, and especially if there is breastfeeding or whether, you choose not to go about that journey. There's so many different changes happening in the human body at that point. Yeah, it's a lot of effort. And so many people are like, okay, it's 9 months to make a baby. And I'm like, okay, there are plenty of books I have in the clinic that also are saying it takes so much more than 9 months. Like, in reality, both the male and the female should be under care for even 9 months prior to starting, the conception journey.
Right.
That, the body actually can take that long to really regulate and process, and that there's a lot going on that people don't even think about. And, some of the harder topics that we can't talk about mothers and the beauty of motherhood without mentioning some of the hard pieces of it too.
Right.
So not everyone has that easy journey into motherhood as everyone else does. So it's like there's sometimes a lot of guilt and frustration if you're working through infertility, or, okay, I've had some losses while I'm trying to become a mother and step into that journey. What we often don't acknowledge, and that it isn't commonly talked about, is when there are losses, depending on what stage of pregnancy you're in, it can have a lot to do with, I don't ever want to say whose fault it is,
Right.
but there's oftentimes the mom will feel so much internal guilt of, oh my goodness, I can't carry this child to term. Well, a lot of miscarriages are often in the first 12 weeks, and that's actually when the male sperm is responsible for the quality of the egg development at that time.
Right.
It provides the hormones to help nourish the little being that is inside of mom, and mom is like, well, okay, now, not even realizing that, dad was responsible for that half of it. It's so much is often on mom internally of, I can't have a baby right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we had kind of touched on it briefly before, and I thought, this is a mind-blowing thing that, you'd have that impact. And then because I'm a giant dork, I went and started doing some research and stuff on my own, and it really is a rabbit hole to go down about how much, when people, and it doesn't always work this way, but when you have a couple that says, hey, we think we'd like to start trying, getting their health on track before they start the act of trying can be a huge benefit.
Well, and you even talk about, okay, it takes, 2 years for your body to recover. If someone is like, no, I want to have lots of kids, I want to just pop them out, cool. And let's just acknowledge where your body is at, resource-wise too. And, there are a lot of different views on when it comes to preventing pregnancy or different avenues of contraceptives. And even when I was growing up, everyone, it seemed like in my grade, was like, oh, you have acne? Let's put you on hormonal birth control. No one talks about the fact that, hey, when we now look at some of those things, it can sometimes take twice as long as you being on hormonal birth control to then get your cycles regulated afterwards. So if you're on it for, let's even just say, 4 years while you're in high school, it could take up to 8 years for your cycles to get regulated, even if you stop. Okay, I was on it, from 14 to 18, and then still another 8 years before your cycles regulate.
Right, which means you could have difficulties for potentially up to 8 years after.
And, I mean, just because you have acne as a teenager, you probably, again, a
say-
huge rabbit hole of
Right.
everything that we could be
And
getting
didn't we all
into.
have acne as a
But,
teenager?
it's a thing of, again, well, what are the other underlying things to, one, even be having that acne to be showing up too, and then two, the piece that you probably don't stop right there once you're just done with high school.
Right.
You probably continue on it for longer and stuff too. So we're seeing more of struggles with some of that regulating of the female cycle to begin with.
It's amazing to me how much connection there is between all the rest of the stuff our body does and the other, little ailments and things that we have that leads back to, well, are you getting good blood flow? Are you getting good oxygen flow? Are you aligned where you're not pinching nerves and blood vessels off? Are you getting good signals, from the brain and everywhere else? That in my brain, I'm like, I can't believe these are related, but they are.
Well, you start to even look at the other, I'm going to say end of the cycle, even though I don't want to call it the end, is when you start stepping into menopause and perimenopausal phases, you start going through, okay, I have this hot flash and cold sweats and, all these things. And again, we start to say, oh, it's a regular thing.
Right.
And
Yeah, it's perfectly
how
normal.
much is it?
Right.
There's a lot to be said for, I've seen people who are well supported in good nervous system communication, and that they're getting the communication that they need, that their body is able to more easily transition through those phases. Sometimes, those phases are even harder because it's now like, no, my kids are all grown up and they're adults, but the thought of me just not being able to have another kid, or, some of those
Right.
things that it's like, we still, whether it's the physical time of your body going through a next phase, or even that mental emotional piece of, oh my goodness, my kids are adults and now I'm not, cycling anymore and I can't have any more kids. Like,
Right.
not that you would have had any intentions.
Right.
But there's, again, the different piece of how can we support you both physically, mentally, and emotionally. All those things in the clinic.
I have to imagine, and please take this as a compliment, people must really love coming in to talk to you because you seem to have a very caring way about yourself and all the conversations we've had. And, I know sometimes when you go see a doctor, it can be, a little off-putting because sometimes it's very clinical, it's very matter of fact. And not always, nothing against doctors, but sometimes they have so much stuff on their plate that bedside manner is left for others to kind of focus on.
Even when it comes to my new patient exam, I normally send the email like 45 to 60 minutes. So many of them lately, I've just been going longer because, like, I get so passionate about this. I want to hear what's all going on in their history, who they are, and then I start to, again, share some of these little random insights that they just didn't even know or didn't even think about. And I love to just be able to cultivate that conversation and create that foundation of how can we establish this journey together. And I want you to know that my biggest thing for anyone coming in the clinic is a message of hope. And it's like, I want people to know that, hey, let's sit down, let's converse about this. And more importantly, there's hope especially when you find something that there's room for improvement. Like,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, we all want improvement if we can get it, especially if it's something we've been struggling with for a while. And that actually leads me into another question I have, or another offshoot of conversation. I was literally just had a conversation about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago with a very good friend of mine. His wife was suffering from only in one leg they were referring to it as restless leg syndrome. She'd been dealing with it for quite a while, and they were just giving her meds to deal with it, and it was kind of helping. But then she wanted to get off the medication because they are talking about planning on, having a baby, and it's one of those meds where it's like, don't take it if you plan on having children. So they're in the process of getting that out of her system so that they can start that process. And she was looking for healthy alternatives to deal with it. And it turns out that for a lot of the things that both of them have as ailments, healthy alternatives seem to always include like alignment and chiropractic care.
And one of the biggest things with chiropractic care is when we're focusing on the nervous system, I'm not ever going in and saying, I'm going to cure this disease you have, this, 100% this guarantee of the symptom is going to go away, or that, hey, even next cycle, you're going to get pregnant. Like, those are nothing that I say, but what I know and what I truly believe in my being and what I have seen so much is when the body is in a healthy, regulated nervous system, there is the message of hope. There is that ability of change. There is that ability to be who you are meant to be. And that's where generations came from, is I want to allow all generations to have their fullest and truest expression of life.
I like that a lot. What are the biggest challenges you have to deal with at your clinic?
Ooh. Really, it's more from the business end of I never saw myself stepping into having my own clinic. So like taking care of the people is so amazing, so fantastic. But one, never saw the business end of stuff. But two, there are days we have hard losses, and it hits you. Like, I recently was thinking after, someone had come in and said that they had a loss again of a baby, and I'm like, I really want to create a wall and like a little bit of a poster that is talking about basically these are all the souls that I've been able to help serve inside of mom that we haven't had the opportunity to meet Earthside. So anytime that there is a loss, it rattles me.
Right.
Yeah, like I know it's all a part of human life, whether it's, okay, an infant loss, whether, hey, I have a lot of elderly people in the clinic too, and, their time has come. But it's like, whatever age, when there's a loss in the clinic, that's what emotionally takes the biggest toll on me.
I imagine on the flip side of that, then, some of your biggest joys must come from, seeing that come through to full term and then come back and getting to see that new baby.
As much as I love taking care of the baby, I think it's even watching the mom interact with the baby and seeing the beauty of mom stepping into motherhood, whether it's her first child, second child, etc., that it's seeing the new version of themselves that they've birthed as they've also birthed a child.
That is awesome. Let's talk about people at home. What are the biggest mistakes people are doing at home that makes either your job harder or makes it so people really have to come see you?
Oh, we've been getting a lot recently of people mentioning, hey, I'm getting more time out in my garden right now because we're appreciating this nice warm weather. And you're naturally going to be bent over so much when you're in the garden. But being cognizant of it, taking some breaks, like, no, I'm never going to say stop working in your garden, stop worrying about your lawn care. Take some breaks between those activities. Don't just stay bent over, hunched over all day. Like, if you have, struggles with some of your knees, like, be cognizant and put some supports under there. Don't just be like, okay, I'm going to just keep kneeling and, wear out the knees, because then it's even going to alter the biomechanics and the movement of the hips and the pelvis too, and create the foundation up. And you're naturally going to be bent over so much more. So a lot more of that shoulders rounding forward and, head drooping forward. So take some moments to then come back in, stand flat against a wall. Put your arms in like a goalpost position against the wall to just stretch everything out after spending so much time forward. Or same thing when we're at a desk and a computer, when we're hunched forward. Take some of those breaks to just stretch and open up that chest.
So I'm going to ask you then, so stretching is kind of an important thing, I'm guessing, because my kids were making fun of me. We planted some trees in our front yard recently, and we're getting ready to dig up some sod and dig some holes. And that's a lot of, for some reason, they never make shovels as long as you feel they need to.
Exactly, the bent over.
Right. And so in preparation for this, I was sitting in the front yard and doing some arm stretches and getting ready. And my kids were like, what are you doing? People are driving by. They can see you. And I'm like, I'm not as young as I used to be.
And again, when I even think about stretching and muscle components, when we look at chiropractic, the nervous system controls everything that's going on, and we're looking at what is happening with the spinal alignment, because those muscles attach to the spine, and the nerves are what control the positioning of both the spine and the muscles. You don't have an opportunity right before you're going to go dig that and put in that tree and put in those plants to get an adjustment because you're at home. Well, how can you at least, help some of the other reciprocal end of stuff too, by working a little bit more through the muscle component, through the stretching, through the muscle work. When we talked about all those other modalities, like, hey, if we're going to do a little bit more of like that strapping on and what kind of is a little bit more of a traction or an inversion table or some of those things, like, those are all beautiful things to help with the end product, even though we're not addressing immediately from the nervous system. So those are all beautiful things that, again, I'm going to be a proponent of.
I like that a lot. Let's remind everybody again, how do they find you? And I know you just got back from vacation, so you're diving right back into things. Are you booking 6 months out, or can people get in to see it pretty decently quick?
So tomorrow, clinic is completely closed all day because it's Leadership Beaver Dam graduation day.
Hey, congratulations
yeah,
on
so
that.
I am excited after that tomorrow. It used to be, every Tuesday of every second Wednesday of the month, I'd be closed for that.
Right.
So I'm excited now that we'll be getting back into just a regular schedule. The Monday through Thursday, the hours are pretty wonky, so people are like, what is happening? Look them up online. That's the best way to go about it. And when it comes to new patient exams, I'm always super adaptable I even would rather do new patient exams outside of the normal scheduled hours. So reach out, give a call or a text to the clinic at the 920-885-0641 number, or go search the website and, hey, I want to start to book an appointment. But then if you even get to the point of, I don't see any time slots I want, I already have gotten the notifications that you're interested, and then we can even go communicate from there too.
There you go. And you're really good about communicating in the ways that work for people, be it texting, phone call. Sometimes texting is easier nowadays, which is awesome as well. Well, Dr. Ali, unfortunately, we're running out of time for today. Unfortunately, I say for sure, because we could probably talk for a while. I know you could talk forever on this. And it just shows how passionate you are about it.
It's one of the things of I'm still trying to adjust the time zone switch, and I was exhausted. I was taking a nap before this. Like I took a nap during my lunch hour yesterday, but the moment I get into the clinic or the moment I get to talk about chiropractic and serve chiropractic, I'm just lit up and I'm like, I can go.
Well, I definitely see that energy, and I appreciate that you bring it to the show. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been a paid program. The advice and opinions expressed on the program are solely that of Generations Chiropractic, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands.